A few days ago, I was led astray. Trin wanted to look in a nearby fabric shop, and while we were in there, I got completely distracted, maybe even captivated, by the enormous amount of beautiful remnants, all neatly folded in perfect piles waiting to be purchased and patchworked. I'm sure I'm not alone in having face coverings on my mind at the moment, and although I would love to take on an ambitious patchwork project, the main thing I saw when I looked at these lovely fabrics was face masks. Trin needs a new one every day for school, so that was a good excuse to buy some material. Then the more I looked at it, the more it became a nostalgia trip. There were fabrics that reminded me of things the boys had had when they were younger, and things I thought other family members and friends would like, and before I knew it, I'd bought enough stuff to make about 35 masks. I've spent several happy hours over the last few days, cutting, pleating, ironing and sewing, and I'm feeling particularly proud of my fabulous stack of face masks. I'm not very keen to be in shops at all at the moment, but part of me can't wait to have an excuse to go out in one of my new masks. From last weekend, the range of places in which face coverings would need to be worn has expanded, and church buildings are included in these. I'm reminded of something a friend said to me several months ago, quite early on in lockdown. He said, "Wearing masks in church won't be a problem. Most of us have been wearing them for years." I've been thinking over the last few days about the variety of invisible masks I fall back on with too much regularity, but I've also been challenged to think about what removing some of these masks might mean. Trin and I spent ages choosing fabric, and it wasn't just nostalgia that slowed us down. She had very particular ideas about the kinds of masks she wants, and certain colours and patterns in mind so that she can coordinate. We all want to choose the image to project to the world around us. We all want people to think about us in a way that matches our image of ourselves. Sometimes the mask is just an exaggeration of the person we know we are really. At other times, the mask might give us a completely different persona. Sometimes we adapt so that our behaviour matches the mask we are donning, and sometimes we shrink away behind it. And we all have perfectly logical reasons for choosing to pick up our masks and protect ourselves from others. Sometimes we don't want people to know that we're struggling with something, and we want to give the impression that we're fine, we're coping, and everything is okay. Maybe only one or two people might really know how we feel. Sometimes we want to give the impression that we know what we're doing, we're in control and nobody else needs to worry. Sometimes we don't want to get hurt, so we don't want to be known too well. Sometimes we want a quiet life, sometimes we don't want to show our annoyance or frustration, or we don't want to enter into contentious territory in a conversation, and so out comes the mask. We probably won't actually go as far as to say that we agree with someone when we don't, but we might try to hide our differing opinion under a layer of nonchalance or ambivalence, or we might just pretend we've not been paying attention to what's being said. Sometimes the more we try to cover things up, the more obvious we make them. The masks only serve to accentuate those things we're trying to hide. What would it be like if we could all take off our masks and truly be ourselves? Could we cope with it? Would we be willing to accept each other as we really are, or do we actually prefer the masks? Is it easier to deal with the construct rather than the hidden reality? In the Old Testament, God tells Moses that nobody can see God's face and live. So although God speaks through words and pictures that are mediated by people like the prophets, there is a sense in which God is masked. Until, that is, we come to Jesus. In Jesus, God removes the mask and we see God face to face, in human form as one we can recognise and know. I love the way Charles Wesley describes this. "Veiled in flesh the Godhead see," he wrote in the hymn, "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." I love the irony of this, that God removes the veil that prevents us seeing God by coming to us in Jesus, while at the same time taking on the veil of our humanity. Sometimes the veil, the mask, only accentuates what lies beneath. There is a remarkable sculpture by San Martino called Veiled Christ. It portrays Jesus after his death, having been taken down from the cross and covered with a cloth. Through this cloth, so delicately sculpted in marble, the marks of Jesus' passion are evident. The cloth does not hide what has taken place. but reveals to us so much more clearly the pain and the hope of God. It's not easy to recognise people you know when you're wearing a face mask. For an introvert like me, this is quite appealing at times, particularly if I'm not in the mood to talk. It's not always good though. I bumped into a friend a few weeks ago. I was wearing a mask, but she wasn't. And also we hadn't met since December, so she wasn't acquainted with my longer lockdown hairstyle. I enthusiastically said hello, but she said, "I'm sorry, I can't tell who you are." And I had to introduce myself to her, which felt rather strange. It's not good for us to live entirely behind a mask. We all need to be known. We can't be truly loved if we don't allow ourselves to be known. At the start of any meaningful relationship, there is always quite an intense period of sharing some deeply personal stuff. You have to ask yourself how much you're willing to invest in this relationship. Do you feel a connection, an affinity that helps you dive off the deep end into vulnerability? Can you let your guard down? Can the masks be removed? And who's going to be the one who's willing to go first? When God removed the mask and gave us Jesus, God invited us to know God. God entered into the realm of vulnerability and asked us to give God a chance. There is irony in this too, that God, who knows every single thing about us and loves us, should come to us incognito and ask to be known and loved. The way that Jesus lived his life revealed more and more of God to us, and all the time Jesus showed that he saw behind the masks we adopted. He saw and he knew and he loved. He still sees and knows even now, and by the Holy Spirit we're made aware of Jesus' challenge to take off our masks and open ourselves up to the power of transformative love, the love that assures us that we are known and loved as we are, yet that calls us to be more and more our true selves, reflecting the image of God in our lives. I'm discovering that it's not that easy to take the mask off. There are too many times when I'm still trying to pretend to God that I'm someone different. There are times when I try to hide my motives or justify mistakes I've made, despite knowing that God knows it all already. I don't know why I do it, other than perhaps because it's both utterly liberating and frightening to know how completely I am known. It's overwhelming, and sometimes we all try to protect ourselves from being overwhelmed. As I finish sewing my face coverings and prepare to find myself in more situations where I need to put the fabric masks on, I'm praying that God will help me to take my other invisible masks off. I might have to hide my face physically, but I can feel the pull of the Spirit, challenging me to allow myself to be known by God and by the people I meet. I want to lose the masks so that I may breathe more freely and live more fully and open myself up for deeper transformation and greater adventures as I try to follow Jesus in my living every day.